Hey, I'm David Newman. I'm just going to go through how I go through membership requests for a group to determine whether they're fake, whether they're living in Australia, and whether I should let them in or not. Now, I've currently got this filtered to female profiles, mainly because they're the ones that I have a lot of issues with. So we'll start here at the bottom, and as you can see, these are all fairly recent ones. There are some basic fake ones that have already been filtered out, and I'll talk about them after. So first one, what I do is I look at the groups. The reason I look at this is because sometimes when you open up the profile, it doesn't allow you to see the groups. But just by hovering over with the mouse, assuming you're on a PC, you can see some of the groups. So in this one, in this case, you can see there's something to do with the COVID one. Hammondville, Liverpool and surrounding suburbs. Now that's one to think about, because that's it could be UK or it could be Australian, being Liverpool. Airfryer, that doesn't really give you much. Income Lab doesn't give you much. LIKE Dance, that's something you could look up to see exactly where that is, because that sounds like a specific dance type company, and that could be specific for an area. The other things you get from this is they joined 15 years ago. Now, although the likelihood is someone that joined 15 years ago is most likely it's a legit profile, these days I've found that there are a lot of profiles that have been hacked that are 5, 10, 15 years old, and they're being used by hackers because they know they can use that profile because it looks legit. It also says lives in Sydney, Australia, which obviously, given this group is for Sydney and New South Wales, that's a good side of it. I do let people in from all around Australia if it looks like they are fully Australian, because they could move there. Now, they didn't answer any membership questions, and there was no response to agreeing to the group rules. Now, that's a negative. So let's go into the profile. Now, if you open it up from here, it actually opens up to the group. And you can see on here it says they've never been a member of the group. Now, sometimes if it's someone that has been in the group before, it'll tell you. And the other thing it'll tell you is if they've tried to get in the group and a moderator or admin has already declined them, it will tell you that here is in the moderation restrictions. That there's no restrictions because they're not in the group. There's been no moderation on them. But if they've been in before, sometimes you will see it'll say they've been in, and if the moderator or admin leaves a note, then it'll tell you why they didn't let them in. And that's ideal. So if you are a moderator or an admin, make sure you leave notes, because it's very helpful for if that person tries to get in the group again. So in this case, there's none. So we'll go to the view main profile. Now, once again, it says lives in Sydney, Australia. It says followed by one person, which is a very low number. But for some profiles, that's not very uncommon. Looking through the post, you've got a few pictures here. The photos are a good sign. There's no real profile picture. So this one here, that's obviously the person. Okay. Now, I think this one's a legit profile. Okay. Just on the very initial looks, but even so, it's worth going in and you do a search image with Google. It'll come up. It'll come up with some things here, which is usually like shopping type items, and you go find image search, and it didn't find any. Okay. Now it's worth doing that with more than one image if you suspect of anything on the profile. This image, you go through the post and you get a bit of an idea on the post, on the profile itself, on the person. They're obviously putting a lot of pictures of kids, which is not unusual. One with their dad. This all looks legit, but there is other places you can look as well. Okay. Now, one of those places, but just above the top of the screen, I can see it's the address for the website, which is facebook.com. And then it's got the name of the profile, which in this case is Christy.Ricks. Now that matches up with Christy, firstly, and here they've even put their maiden name being Ricks. So it matches up. In some cases, especially with some Nigerian ones, you'll have something like a name like Christiane Bunker here, but up the top in the profile, it'll be something like Amaputu Angwe. and that's obviously something totally different, and it sounds like an African type name, and those ones almost 100% of the time are fakes. On the other hand, you also might have one with Christiane Bunker, and up the top it might just say, "My Sweet Lord." I'm just making something up, but it could be just something that they've made up themselves. It could be, it could be their kid's name or something. It's not always totally obvious, but some of the Nigerian ones are very obvious because they're very African-looking names, and they usually are not a profile that looks like this one. So this one's good. I'm happy with this one. The only thing I can check further is going into the about. In the about on this particular profile, there's nothing in the check-ins. Check-ins are really good to check. Likes, you've got an Australian, and that's, don't know, Cosmopolitans Worldwide, Dance, well, that's a general. You can go into see all and go into more of them. There's quite a few Australian ones in here. It's very much based on Australia. And the other thing is, even though there is Australian ones in there, that's not the be-all and end-all. In some cases, there will be a lot of Australian ones in there, but they might be very general, like the news ones. A lot of news ones and newspapers and things like that. But when you get, and here's that dance one, and you can see here, if you go over it, it's actually a dance studio that's in St Leonard's, Sydney. So specific ones like that are always better ones to look at. Darling Harbour, Hurricane's Grill, it could have been anywhere, but it's a Darling Harbour one, Sydney, once again. So this one's a good one. So for Christy, that's an approve. Now, I don't know which ones of these are good and which ones aren't good because I haven't gone through any of them anymore. But just looking here, this one doesn't say Sydney. She says lives in Manly after a relationship, been single a year, and has agreed. But the profile straight up, the profile picture, and if I go there, it also says divorced. Divorced and widowed are ones that are not so much a suspect, but widowed in particular. I often find that a lot of scammers put widowed. I don't know why, it's just the way they do it. Now, look in the groups, Facebook dating. Now, this is another one. If you see things like, for a dating website in particular, Facebook dating is very general, and you get ones like dating in US, UK, Europe and that. Now, if they're in Australia, they're not going to be going into a Facebook dating or any dating sites for US, Europe and Canada and all those sort of things. And I think it does have Australia on it as well, but it's very, very general. The other ones on here, you've got Australian owned and made, which is that one you say is a positive. Harley, well, that doesn't give you anything. And a German dating site. Now, why would an Australian be on a German dating site? You've also got Akucha, I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry, District Netball Association. Now, I'm pretty sure that's an Australian one as well. So it's a mixture. You've got some mixed things there. So let's go into this profile. Once again, has never been in the group. That's your first check. So we go to the main profile, followed by 91 people, which is a few, but this picture is and you're looking at this, it could be legit, but it's very much one that looks like it is possibly not. But it's a possibly not at this stage. Okay, just going through these, that's a meme. There's not a lot of Tasmania Police, but that's set by someone else. This is the other thing. You'll often find a lot of fake profiles when they do have a lot of stuff on their content. A lot of it's, they might be just sharing stuff from somewhere else. Just going through. Just trying to get a bit of a feel for the profile. See, ones like this are interesting, but there's no number plates. Ones like this are interesting because it looks like it's one that they've posted themselves, a picture they've posted themselves. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's any identifying thing on there. So we'll keep going. See, that's no number plate. That's from another place. That one's got a number plate. But once again, it's a general. There's nothing specific. We're looking for specific stuff. Something that's specific to an area. We're not finding it at the moment. let's have a look at these pictures. Now, this straight away looks like, okay, that looks like it could be a fake. Now, although reverse search isn't 100%, it does get quite a few. And this one's come up with it straight away. Look at that. So straight away, we've got an Instagram, and there's many of them. Look at it. All through. This is tons. I don't normally get this many on there. So straight away, we can look. And the key here is it's Ava Adams, okay? So we know this is a picture of Ava Adams. Now, the name here is Roy Ava. The chance of Ava Adams being an Australian and being on a singles group is probably pretty slim, I would say. But just looking at this, so we definitely know that pic is a fake pic. The other thing that I didn't mention is when I did come into this profile is up the top, and although I mentioned it before about the name and the Addy not matching, in this case it just says profile and it gives a number. So not all of them have a name there. Now I reckon all of these pics are going to be Ava Adams. So I'll just search another one. That one, interestingly enough, see that one is not coming up. But when I do the search for image, it's Ava Adams. So we know this is Ava Adams' pictures. Now, could Ava Adams be trying to join this singles group? I seriously doubt it. If it was Ava Adams, who's a famous Instagram model, only being followed by 91 people, pretty unlikely. Okay? In the about, just to go a bit further to look into anywhere further. Now, with people following, they could be from anywhere. What you do find is if you find, like that one's from US, if you do find, that's US again, if you do find ones that don't really match with someone that's in Australia, that one's also US, so yeah, that gives it away a bit. Then you go into likes, and we interestingly enough got an Australian football club. Okay. And then some mistresses. Okay. Now, I'm confident this one is a fake. That one was a pretty obvious one. And what I do with ones that are obvious is I decline and ban them. Now, this is important. I decline and ban them, right? Now, after I do that, I go into here, into the activity log. And I do it on another tab. I just have a tab open for it. It makes it easy. And the reason I do that is because on here it gives you the option to add a note. So I add a note. And on this one, my common one for here is saying fake, reverse search. That way, what I mentioned before, if someone else goes in now to Roy Ava's, if someone else comes in and she's requested again, which we can't because I just banned her, but if for any reason, any way it came up again, then it'll say membership request declined and admin notes. And if you click on that, it'll come up and it'll say fake reverse search. And it tells you the date. So that's really useful, and especially if you haven't banned them. If you haven't banned them, they can try to join again, and that message will still come up. Okay, let's just go through another couple of quick ones. So Amy Lee here has, there's one for Pittwater, which is an Australian one as far as the groups. The other groups don't really help. Lives in Australia, which is a good sign. Manager at Elevator Hub, which we'll go into in a minute. Says a Motivale, long-term 7, all that agrees. So it all looks off reasonable. Go into the profile. Now, Elevator Hub is an Australian company, so that's a positive. Once again, it says lives in Sydney and from Sydney. This is actually in the about because I've already had a look. If I go back to the posts, some people would say, oh, this person looks like they're rather attractive and that. You know, and you look at the comments, gorgeous baby, you look amazing, looking good, you know, which is pretty typical of sort of comments. But the difference on this one really is a lot of them are from females. One of the ones that would be a bit of a red flag, I suppose, is if it was all guys. Now, I can go in and I can search with Google to have a look and see if that does come up, which when I go in, it doesn't. I'm not that worried about this one. If I go through there's not a lot that's really showing from Australia though. You can go into the photos, which is sometimes a little bit easier. Now, there's not a huge amount there. There is one thing with the Ukraine flag, but that's being in solidarity with Ukraine. We're now into a photos tab, but it brings up some other things as well, including check-ins, and there's a check-in at Maina Vale, New South Wales, which is a positive. Also, your likes, you've got Audi Australia, several other things that are also Australian-based here. I'm not seeing anything that's like sometimes when you find, weirdly enough, Nigerian musicians and things like that are sort of a giveaway. Daughters of India, well, that's a interesting one for it, but elite singles, that's okay. So it's all right having some singles one. It depends on the sort of ones they have. There is a lot of things in this one, and some profiles do have a lot of likes. And when they do, you're going to get a bit of a variation on them. But there is if you look at this, predominantly there is where it is a specific country or location based like, it's an Australian one. So this one's a good profile. Okay, here's one that's come up with the Philippines. I've just found again. All right, and these come up a lot. I don't know why. This one's only a 2-year-old profile. A lot of groups. The groups don't really help much, but where do you live? Okay. What are you looking for? Okay, I'm from the Philippines. How long you been single? Okay. And they do agree to the group rules. I don't need to go into it, but I will just, let's just have a look and see what they have got on their profile. They haven't been in the group, so we'll go into the normal profile. And straight away, you look at this. They've got joining groups or websites or something, and it's full of that. Now, not all of them will be like that, but I'd say that a lot of them will. But I don't even normally open the profile because I know they're fake. So if you ever see one like that, it's just a straight away decline and ban. And the reason you ban is so that they can't try to join again. But I get sometimes 20 of them a day trying to join, and they're all exactly the same like that. Very easy to get rid of. Very easy to tell that they're not real. We also get ones that aren't from Australia that try to join. Okay, you see here that some of them, Taluk, I don't know where that is, but I've opened up the profile. They're saying they're living in Marsden Park, and maybe they have, and they just haven't changed that. It's an old profile, a lot of groups. The groups don't mean very much looking at that one after a serious and long-lasting relationship. But we go into the profile, and then if you go on Taluk, you can see it's from the Philippines. So straight away, I'm not letting this person in because according to that, they live in the Philippines. The other thing is they've locked their profile. I cannot tell anything from this profile. So all I can see is that they've graduated from Far Eastern University and a couple of likes there, but they're general type ones, and people they followed. So there's not very much I can tell. All I can tell from this is that they live in the Philippines. Most of them, when they've locked their profile, I decline anyway. This one I'm banning because they live in Philippines and we just get too many of them. The other thing I can see, which you can't see on the screen, is this is the name they've got here for the profile. But up the top after the facebook.com, it actually is called Caesarian.Ibarra. So Ceasarian, Caesarian, and Ibarra, Ibarra, which to me means it might not even be the same person. Could be, but either way, this one's a ban. And the one under it, Pakistan, straight away. Could they have moved to Australia? Yes, they have, but they haven't changed that to Australia. So I generally won't any of them go into it. And it's from Saudi Arabia. Sorry, you're not in Australia. And with these ones, I'll normally decline, and I'll probably decline with feedback often, or I'll just decline them straight up. There are a lot of people from Pakistan that come to live in Australia. There are a lot of people from India that are in Australia. There's huge amounts. So you can go either way. It could be that they just haven't updated that. But the other thing is people from Pakistan and that you often get a lot of scammers from there. So often banning one, even if it's a legit person and it's a guy in a dating group, it's not a big loss. In this case, I'm just going to decline them. If they try to rejoin and they've changed it to Australia and there is proof on their profile that they're in Australia, then all good. I'd let them in. Because I've not got anything against people from other countries that have come here. If they've done that, there's plenty of them. We're a multicultural country. Works at buy and sell marketplace. So that's around about it. I mean, there are a lot of different things you can find. Lives in Kenya, but says they're in Fairfield. Let's have a look at this profile, just quickly to see. I mean, they're saying they're living in Fairfield. So let's see if there is any proof that they are in Australia. According to this, they went to a school in Kenya. They live in Kenya. And they're in a civil partnership, so they shouldn't be looking to join this anyway. They've blacked out the number plates on this. So that doesn't help. You've got, I'm pretty sure that must be Kenyan money. And this is from 13th of March, so not that long ago. They're in a relationship last year. They only just graduated in Kenya. Well, that's 5 years ago. Someone from Kenya, you expect a lot of their friends are going to be from Kenya. That's understandable. It does say they work at this place. ICPAC Youth Forum. Okay, well, let's have a look at that. It's an accountant. Job location, Nyala. Yeah, Nyali. And Mumbai. So, they're saying that they work there, and that's a Kenyan place that they work at. So, pretty much, that's it. That's the proof. If it says that they work at Kenya, they're probably at Kenya, even though it's got car sales in Sydney. It's also got Denver. Study in Australia. There is some Australian links, single events in Sydney. But those links could also be to try to get into a group in Australia and scam. You just don't know. But there's no definitive evidence that they're living here. So even if they didn't have Kenya on it, if I'd looked at it and that was the evidence I saw, that they're working in Kenya according to that, they grew up in Kenya, most of their friends are Kenyan, it would be the same deal. I wouldn't allow it. That's about it. If you're ever in doubt, you ask. And some of them are easy. I mean, straight up, if it says that they're in another country, they're easy, you just decline. Otherwise, if unsure, that's when you ask the question. Lives in Rochester, New York. It's so easy. Okay, that's it.